Welcome and thank you for watching this online presentation for the 2012 Ubiquitous Learning Conference. I am Dr. Catherine Baumhold, faculty at the University of Southern Mississippi School of Library and Information Science, and I'm here to discuss the results of a survey of undergraduate use of smartphone applications. We're all familiar with the image of college students walking around campus completely preoccupied with their smartphone screen. Watching them, I became intrigued. What is it that they find so fascinating? What applications or apps could they find so useful? In short, what are they doing on those cell phones? Doing a quick search, I found this headline: iTunes hits 25 billion downloads. But the article was not encouraging. It listed the 25 free and 25 paid most downloaded apps of all time. Of these, 72% were games, and the rest consisted of communication apps such as Twitter and Facebook, tools such as Flashlight, or other entertainment type apps. But of course, this is not scientific. It included all users and all ages, and that an app was downloaded does not mean that it was used. So, is this indicative for college students? If not, what are they using? And how can this information be used when developing apps, especially library apps, for college students? The question guiding the research was, do undergraduate students use smartphone applications for more than communication and entertainment? 3 sub-questions were also identified. What applications do undergraduates use, and how frequently? What information providing apps do they use most frequently? And do they use apps to find academic or research information, and what apps do they use? There is current research on the use of mobile devices in the literature, although none look at this specific demographic and their use of apps. The EDUCAUSE Center for Applied Research, or ECAR, produces a national study of undergraduates in information technology. This is an annual survey of college students' use and perception of information technology within higher education and has been published since 2004. The most recent ECAR study was published in September of 2012. Data for that report was collected from February 16th to April 10th of 2012. More than 100,000 students from 195 institutions took part. This report provides a baseline for comparison of ownership and post-secondary academic use of smartphones. In the professional literature of library and information science, the literature often proceeds under the assumption that library patrons, especially students, will use the technology if the software is built. Annual conferences such as the Handheld Librarian and M-Libraries have been exploring the development and promotion of mobile devices in libraries and education since the mid-2000s. Starkweather and Stoward, Farkas, Krishnan also recognize the potential of smartphones as a tool for libraries, but do not address actual use. There are many articles that discuss the technical aspects of building library apps and mobile websites, and others consider how library service strategies will have to change in response to the new technology, but none explore current use by patrons or potential patrons. The literature of information seeking focuses on information needs, often within a geographic context. Hyman, 2009, looked at experienced users, students, and IT professionals, and concluded that mobile internet users are very likely to address information needs as they arrive. Karen Church at Telefonica Research in Spain is looking at information needs through diary studies to document how searching behavior is heavily influenced by location and time. Church, Cousin, and Oliver, in a study published in September of 2012, examined mobile searching in all users from 18 to 60 years old and found that social mobile searching occurs in close-knit groups, is inspired by random conversations, and mostly consists of trivia and future plans and activities of the group. The literature of mobile computing is much broader in scope and precise in data retrieval. Here, researchers often use internal tracking programs to generate data for analysis. Ramadi, 2010, looked at teenagers 14 to 18 years old, providing them with special phones that would track their usage. The 4-month combined method field study found that different usage patterns applied to various locations, and that mobile smartphone use by teenagers was significant even when PCs were within close range. Bomer and others, 2011, analyzed data collected through an app called Appazar. For users, the application generates suggestions for other apps based on their current smartphone usage. For researchers, the program logged application usage, time, session length, and generalized location. While the application generated much rich data, it did not capture demographic information, so the conclusions are only broadly applicable. What they did find was that news applications dominate in the morning, games are prevalent at night, but that communication apps are used throughout the day. For this study, students enrolled in an undergraduate class in information literacy were asked to fill out an online survey on the use of apps on their smartphones. 62 took the survey. Of those, 84% were 18 to 24 years old. 67% were white, non-Hispanic, and 27% were black or African American. 48% were lowerclassmen, and 52% upperclassmen. All of this is a close representation of the USM student body as a whole. The final demographic, 74% female, while not representative of the university, does reflect the makeup of the enrollment of this course. After demographics, the students were asked if they owned a smartphone. Specifically, they were asked, do you own a smartphone or other similar internet-ready mobile device? Include iTouch, iPhone, Android, BlackBerry, and other devices, regardless of phone capability. Do not include tablets, laptops, or other portable computers. The responses coincided with the most recent ECAR studies. The 2011 study found that 55% of undergraduate students owned smartphones. 12 months later, the number had increased by 7%. 6 months later, 76% of this group of respondents, 47 of the original 62, reported that they owned this type of device. The 15 who reported that they did not were automatically exited out of the study. Respondents were then asked to name the 3 apps that they used most frequently. The results were compiled and sorted into categories by application type. Communication apps such as Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook represented almost 55% of the responses. Entertainment and tool apps, including games, music, alarm, calendar, notes, were together almost 30%. Search engines represented more than 10%. Other app types such as shopping, health, and others made up the final 5%. The survey also included questions about the students' frequency of use of specific types of applications. Of note to this research is the reported use of open-ended information applications. These are defined as those where the type or length of information retrieved is indefinite or complex, as opposed to simple facts. Included in this category are search engines, reference apps such as Wikipedia and language translators, and libraries or databases. In this case, 78% reported they used search engine apps very frequently or frequently, which is more than 1 to 2 times per week. Additionally, 37% reported they use reference or library apps very frequently or frequently. The students were also asked to name the 2 apps that they use most frequently when looking for information. The 74 responses were sorted and grouped by type. For this question, most of the responses, 72%, or apps, specifically Ask.com and Wikipedia, where the user can retrieve complex or detailed information, not just simple answers. This indicates that they know the extent of what they need, but not necessarily where to go to get it. These are also apps that are companions to popular full websites, so they don't have to learn something new. 19% of the apps were specific to a certain type of information, dictionaries and translators. In this instance, the user has identified what information they need, and they know exactly where to get it. Finally, 8% of the reported apps were libraries or databases, indicating that the user has identified a need for complex information and that they know where to get it. Next, the students were asked about their use of smartphone apps for finding academic information. The 2011 eCar report found that 36% of undergraduates did use their mobile device for this purpose. By spring of 2012, that number had nearly doubled to 67%. 6 months later, fully 76% of students surveyed for this research reported that they did use their smartphone to find information for academic purposes. The students were asked to name the 5 apps that they use most often to find academic information. Of the 70 responses, 60% were search engines, 14.4% were online encyclopedias or homework sites, 11.3% were dictionaries or translators, 10% were tools such as calculators or flashcards, and 4.3% were libraries or databases. So, going back to the original question, do undergraduate students use smartphone applications for more than communication and gaming? While the majority of app use is still in entertainment and communication, undergraduates do use smartphones to find open-ended information. Although still a small percentage of the most frequently used apps, 10.4%, search engines, online encyclopedias, and libraries are used by this group of students. Furthermore, more than 3/4 of the group report using apps to find academic information. The apps they use most often for questions where the type or length of information needed is indefinite or complex are familiar to them and have full websites accessible on their PC. Student use of smartphone apps for academics is increasing and will likely continue to do so as ownership increases. The implication for this research reiterates the conclusions of the article, "If it's too inconvenient, I'm not going after it." In their research, Conaway, Dickey, and Radford discussed the importance of convenience as a critical factor in information seeking. Time, ease of access, and sources that were quote-unquote good enough were all aspects of convenience that their subject discussed in making choices and finding information. This idea of convenience can be used to explain our participants' choices of Wikipedia, Ask.com, and general search engine apps such as Google, Safari, and Yahoo to find information. These apps are familiar to the user, and so there is no learning curve. They are readily available at no cost, and the contents or results are considered quote-unquote good enough. Designing a library app or mobile website is more than just putting static information in a small package. In order for libraries to develop applications that successfully compete with information giants such as Google and Wikipedia, they cannot rely on users to search for the best information. Instead, they must offer what the giants do: broad choices, convenience, and ease of use, along with the access to authoritative content, all in the palm of their patron's hand.